Good morning, everyone. I'm Gary, the host of this channel. Welcome back to Investment Pill. Today, we're talking about a company most people have never heard of, but that makes almost everything in your digital life possible. Not Apple, not Nvidia, the company those companies genuinely cannot exist without. Today's episode, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. We're going to cover where they came from, the one idea that built their entire empire, how they actually make their money, and what the financials look like right now. And as always, nothing here is financial advice. We're here to understand the business together. What you do with that knowledge is entirely up to you. All right, let's get into it. Here's something that should feel kind of weird once I say it. Apple and Nvidia are not friends. In the world of tech, they're competing for your attention, your money, and your loyalty. Same goes for AMD, Qualcomm, and Broadcom. These companies spend billions of dollars every year trying to outdo each other. And yet, every single one of them sends their most sensitive, most guarded intellectual property, their actual chip designs, to the exact same factory. Think about that. Companies that would never share their secrets with each other all trust one factory with their crown jewels. Why would they do that? That question is the entire TSMC story, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why there is genuinely nothing else like it in the world. Oh, and one more thing before we dive in. About 90% of the world's most advanced chips are made on a single island. We'll come back to what that actually means and why it matters at the very end. Let's go back to 1987. Morris Chang was 55 years old, and he'd just been passed over for the top job at Texas Instruments, one of the biggest semiconductor companies in America. He'd spent 25 years climbing through the ranks, becoming one of the most respected engineers in the entire industry, and then someone else got the CEO role, so Morris Chang moved to Taiwan, and then he had an idea that basically everyone told him was insane. At the time, every major chip company did two things. They designed chips and they built them. Intel had its own factories. Texas Instruments had its own factories. That was just how the industry worked. The whole vertical stack, start to finish, under one roof. Chang's idea? What if you only built chips and never designed a single one of your own? No end products, no competing in any market, just pure, expert manufacturing for whoever needed it. If you're not designing anything, people told him, you have no identity. You're just a contractor. But Chang saw something others completely missed. He noticed that brilliant chip designers, people with genuinely world-changing ideas, were being held back by the insane cost of building a factory. A chip fab can cost hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars. Most startups could never afford one. What if those designers could just hand the hard manufacturing work off to someone who was obsessively great at it? And then came the masterstroke. Chang promised that TSMC would never, ever compete with its customers. Whatever you design, we build it, and we will never try to make our own competing product. That single promise is why Apple hands over its iPhone chip designs. It's why Nvidia trusts TSMC with its AI chips. These are rivals in every other sense, but they all work with TSMC because TSMC has never once broken that promise in nearly 4 decades. The industry took off, and TSMC grew with it. But something happened in 2008 that cemented everything. The global financial crisis hit. Companies everywhere slashed spending. TSMC's founder came out of retirement, looked at the chaos, and made a bet. He poured money into the next generation of chip technology while every competitor was cutting back. A few years later, the smartphone era exploded. Apple needed cutting-edge chips for the original iPhones at massive scale. Qualcomm did too, and the only company in the world with the capacity and the skill to deliver? TSMC. Every rival was years behind. That's when the gap became a chasm. So how does TSMC actually make money? At its core, TSMC is a contract manufacturer. You bring them a chip design, a blueprint, and they build it. They charge by the wafer. A wafer is basically a large disk of silicon that gets sliced into hundreds of individual chips. Here's where it gets interesting. Not all chips are equal. The more advanced the process, meaning the smaller and more precise the chip's components, the higher the price per wafer. And the companies that need the most advanced chips have literally nowhere else to go. Nvidia wants to build the most powerful AI accelerators in the world. TSMC is the only factory on the planet that can make them at scale. Apple wants the chips that make your iPhone feel impossibly fast. Same answer. TSMC. When you're the only one who can do something, and the entire world needs that thing, you get to name your price. TSMC has raised its prices every year, and customers keep paying. Because what's the alternative? Now, what stops someone from just building a competitor? A few things. First, technology. TSMC is currently the only company making chips at the 3-nanometer level at high volume, and it's already ramping up 2-nanometer production. To put that in perspective, we're talking about structures smaller than a strand of DNA. Building that kind of precision takes decades and hundreds of billions of dollars in investment. Second, and this is the sneaky one, there's something called yield. Yield is the percentage of chips on a wafer that actually work. Getting yield high enough to be profitable at the most advanced nodes is one of the hardest technical problems in manufacturing. TSMC has spent 37 years optimizing it. Their closest rival, Samsung, reportedly had yield rates so low on their own advanced chips that they couldn't attract major customers, and reportedly ended up manufacturing some Samsung products at TSMC itself. Let that sink in. TSMC's biggest competitor sent their own chips to TSMC to be made. Third, the neutrality promise. Any company that competes with its foundry customers is asking those customers to hand over trade secrets to a direct rival. Nobody does that voluntarily. TSMC's "we never compete" rule is not just a policy. It's the entire foundation of the trust the business is built on. And one more layer. TSMC has moved beyond just manufacturing wafers. They now handle something called advanced packaging, stacking multiple chips together in ways that massively boost performance. For the AI accelerators inside the data centers powering tools like ChatGPT and everything else running on AI right now, this packaging is just as critical as the chip itself. And only TSMC can do it at the scale the biggest tech companies need. Stack all of that together: the technology lead, the yield advantage, the neutrality, the packaging, and you get a moat that's extremely hard to cross. Okay, let's talk numbers. And we're keeping this tight. 4 stats, all in context. In 2025, TSMC brought in $122 billion in revenue. That grew 32% in a single year. To put $122 billion in perspective, that's larger than the entire GDP of most countries on Earth. That's the scale we're talking about. But the number that really tells you about the health of this business is the gross margin. Gross margin is basically how much of every dollar of revenue a company keeps after paying its direct costs to produce things. In 2025, TSMC's gross margin was around 60%. A car manufacturer might keep 10 to 15 cents per dollar. The average chip foundry keeps around 25 cents. TSMC keeps 60. In a business that requires billions of dollars in physical factories and machinery, not software, actual heavy industry, that is almost unheard of. It tells you that customers are paying a premium because they simply cannot go anywhere else. Who's driving that growth? Increasingly, it's AI. In 2025, high-performance computing, which includes the AI chips powering data centers everywhere, made up roughly 58% of TSMC's revenue. 2 years earlier, that number was closer to 40%. The shift toward AI is structural, and TSMC is sitting right at the center of it. And their market position? TSMC controls around 70% of the global chip foundry market. The next largest competitor holds roughly 7%. That is not a competitive market. That's closer to a monopoly in one of the most strategically important industries in the world. Here's the one thing I want you to walk away with. TSMC is not a brand you wear or an app you open. You'll probably never buy their product directly, and yet almost everything digital in your life runs on chips they made. That invisibility is actually what makes them extraordinary. They built a company whose entire identity is enabling everyone else's success, and made themselves completely irreplaceable in the process. But remember that figure we planted at the top. 90% of the world's most advanced chips, the ones powering AI, smartphones, modern military hardware, financial systems, manufactured on one island, Taiwan, a small island with a complicated geopolitical situation that the world is paying very close attention to. The business fundamentals are exceptional, but that geographic question is real, and it's unresolved. TSMC is building factories in Arizona, Japan, and Germany to spread the risk over time. Whether it's enough, and how fast it happens, that is genuinely one of the most important questions in global technology right now. No company has a more critical role in the products shaping our world. That alone makes it one of the most fascinating businesses to follow. Just a reminder, nothing in this video is financial advice. We're here to learn about businesses together, not tell you what to do with your money. Always do your own research.